listening to the Brawdy Show. It's time to mortal up.
I don't know about you, but it certainly seems to me that a lot of people are gunning for a war. So I say, let's give them one. We need a war on toxic sensitivity to expose this delicate susceptibility wherever it attempts to take root. We need to battle the brittle brains atop balsa wood spines, their hot heads wrapped in thin skin, always on the lookout for a safe space or a protective bubble. Grow up. You want to submarine your own life? Have at it. But you're not going to bring the rest of us down with you. It's time to mortal up. Good evening once again. I'm very excited about our 501st episode. Hopefully because we're going to be able to extend all week. Monday through Friday, we'll be on at 7 p.m., and then we're working in all kinds of new things as we've been promising all along. So I'm very excited about all that. We're going to introduce the poll tonight. We'll be taking live calls. We'll be taking live texts. We'll be doing what we can to monitor the feed. So thank you all so very much for helping us get to this point. And tonight's topic is so exciting, not just because it's got over 500 or 600 likes since we put it up yesterday on social media, just on Facebook alone. But I'm excited about it because it's something that's very personal to me. When I talk about the war on toxic sensitivity, when I talk about the hot heads wrapped in thin skin, that they're doing everything they can to water down human wherewithal, it all goes back not to toxic masculinity. And I know there's all kinds of people that are fired up about that, but it's not toxic masculinity. It's toxic sensitivity, where everyone's triggered, everyone's offended, everyone's in need of a bubble, everyone's mortified, everyone's upset. And I'll never forget, and it's probably 10 or 15 years now, when the concept really first struck me. I was in Los Angeles, where I lived at the time, and Howie Mandel, believe it or not, was guest hosting for Regis and Kathy. That's how long it goes back. So it may be more than 10 years. Was guest hosting for Regis and Kathy. And I had bumped into Howie out at a soup plantation of all places. I think it was in Los Angeles. So I was like, oh, cool, you're going to be doing this show. And so I wanted to just kind of support him. So I decided that I would, that I would tune in. So he is the guest host at a time where the actress Halle Berry, right? Now, I know I'll get in trouble for dropping a name, so forget I said Halle Berry. No matter what, just don't remember that I said Halle Berry. So in any event, this particular actress was involved in an automobile accident. And what happened was she left the scene of the accident, didn't stop, as best I can recall, didn't stop, didn't wait for the police to arrive, didn't do anything. It was a hit and run. She was in the accident, and then she took off, which in and of itself is kind of some grave consequences. So you could see, well, that's really not a cool thing. You don't want to mess with that. So you go, okay. Well, so now let's jump to Howie. Howie comes on, and he's guest hosting on Regis and Kathy, as I said, and he's doing like his opening monologue, his opening shtick. And he said, oh, I'm excited to be here in New York. I'm excited to be doing this. I'm excited to be doing that. And I have to tell you, though, I was really something else because she's a huge star and I'm in awe of her. But I was coming out of the green room, and Halle was coming down the hallway, and I moved in kind of close to be able to. He doesn't shake hands. I don't know if you know this about Howie Mandel, but he's been doing fist bumps and elbow bumps for before it was vogue, right? Long before COVID-19. So he was moving in, and the joke he tells is, he said, well, she bumped into me and she didn't stop and say anything. She just kept on going. So that was the joke, obviously playing on the fact that she had been involved in the hit and run accident, right? So everyone in the audience laughed. I know I laughed. Like, oh, she bumped into me in the hallway and kept on going. Well, he's forced to come out and apologize because Halle Berry said, I was mortified, I was offended, whatever the words were. I was triggered, back before triggered was a popular word. I was triggered. I was upset. I was offended. I was mortified. How dare he? Well, how dare he? It's a joke. And, wait for it. He's a comedian, right? So, of course, he's going to do a joke about it. But that was the beginning of toxic sensitivity for me. For someone to come on, and Howie, if I remember correctly, I don't think he came on the rest of the show, but they let Halle Berry on to talk about how mortified she was and didn't find his humor funny. And that's when it struck me. There's an entire group of people with skin so thin that even, remember the old adage, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me? Well, apparently, names and words have been added to the other side of the list. So now it's sticks and stones and names will break my bones. And, I don't think there's no other thing that will never hurt me. I'm offended. I'm triggered. I'm mortified. I need a bubble. I need a safe space. I need a protection. I need a service animal. I need a comfort food. I need all these other things. So that was my beginning of the understanding that it really was, or there really was a time in our country where we could go back and say, sticks and stones may break my bones. Names will never hurt me. But now everyone is, not everyone, not you, not the people watching our show, obviously, but people are triggered. People are offended. People are upset. People are, everything maligns. Everything offends. So that's when I said earlier that, hey, everyone's calling for a war. Everyone wants to get all worked up. Everyone's offended. So they're calling for a war. I say we need a war on toxic sensitivity. I say we need a war on, and wherever it tries to put, they're like dandelions. They try to put their roots in anywhere. I say we need a war to root out toxic sensitivity at all its levels, not just on college campuses, not just in the media, just in everyday life, where people are so thin-skinned that something you say gets in, like you're playing them like a marionette. Like you have the ability to actually alter their mood. When did that happen? It could have happened while I was asleep, right? That's 4 years. It's just flown by. Maybe I was out. Maybe I had amnesia. I don't know, but something happened to where people everywhere are now like, oh, that was offensive. That was mortifying. I'm triggered. I'm just put out of sorts. I need a safe space. You don't get to say that. So that's why I say, and this would be as good a place as any, Wayne, to introduce the poll. We have a poll now. If you head on over to mortalup.com, what we'll do, oh, there you go. Thank you, Wayne. Register your vote at mortalup.com. You get to head on over there. And is toxic sensitivity, is it too dangerous? Is it killing us? Is that everyone wanting to be overly sensitive, everyone wanting to be politically correct, everyone wanting to make sure they don't step on anyone's toes verbally, right? Cultural appropriation. Oh, you can't wear that because that's someone else's culture. Well, I don't know about you, but not too long ago, if you wore shoes, it was cultural appropriation. I don't know who was the first people to ever wear shoes, but, there you go. So all I would suggest, if you want to get in the vote, and then what we'll do is tomorrow night, we'll read the vote on air. So that vote will stay up at mortalup.com. That vote will stay up, and you'll be able to see right then when you tally it, where it is, what it is, where you stand in terms of the population. But for tonight's show, we wanted to make a quick mention of that. And then we want to get ready here. But before too long, we're going to open the phone lines so that we'll call in, we'll be able to discuss it, I would suspect. But before we do that, long-time friend of mine, dear friend of mine, was asking me today, he goes, so what's the scoop, do you think? Where have people, how has society deteriorated to such a degree that we all now we're walking on eggshells. We're on pins and needles, I guess one of the cliches are. All the different things that are going on in the world. Everyone's so sensitive. Everyone, as I said, is so triggerable. I'd be happy, Wayne, if we could figure out where that word ever first even made it into the lexicon. We're all so triggerable. In any event, how is that going to mold the future for our kids and our grandkids? How's it going to mold the future? When you think about it, it's only been 19 years since September 11th. And look at the change in our country in just 19 years. Some of the people protesting now weren't even alive a little under 2 decades ago. So how, as a country, have we gone to where It used to be cool to fly the flag. It used to be cool to stand up for your country, whatever your country is. That used to be cool, but now, oh, no, 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 can't have that happen. So what I started to realize, and a lot of this was spent, I guess I should say I gleaned this understanding from my time in the wilderness and my time most certainly in Denali with grizzly bears, most certainly with the mountain lions in Colorado, mountain lions in California for that matter. But here's the go of it. The people that are toxically sensitive, the people that are offended, maligned, triggered, whatever it is, I think they misconstrue the difference between a grizzly bear with cubs and a mountain lion. So now let's just, and I hope this will be helpful as we move on in some of the debate. So, you hear all the time, well, you got to play dead. You can't, if you come across a grizzly bear, especially a grizzly bear, a female grizzly bear with cubs, you got to play dead. Let me say hi to Miss Putnam. Miss Putnam, thank you so very much. Candace, thank you. And Brian, nice to see you as well. Thank you so very much for joining us. We were just talking about the difference between mountain lions and grizzly bears. So you've heard the old saying, oh, you just got to play dead. Well, the reason for playing dead with a female grizzly bear is that she just wants to make sure you're not a threat to her cubs. She wants to make certain that there's nothing that you do that will pose a threat. So if you lie there, you play dead, she'll bat you around a little bit, maybe chew on the back of your neck just to see, right? Just to see what's going on. But it's not necessarily a threat to your life. The grizzly bear's not going to eat you if it realizes you're not a threat to its offspring. Now, transpose that with the people that are doing everything they can to suggest you're triggerable, everything to water down human wherewithal, not just theirs, but by association, yours as well, to water everything down so that anything you say is offended. And people go, I can't believe it's gotten this bad. It's gotten this bad because we misconstrue the advice for a mama grizzly bear, play dead, with that of what do you do if you confront a mountain lion. Now, this isn't an episode of National Geographic or Wild Kingdom or anything like that. Brian Bouchard, nice to see you as well. Well, we got a show of Brian's. Thank you so very much. Ladies and Brian's, gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining us. Nice to see you as well. What I would suggest is a mountain lion. And again, we're not going to go into all the things, make yourself look bigger, stand your ground, slowly back out of the way. But a mountain lion, if you roll over and play dead, a mountain lion's like, great, I don't even have to expend energy for the battle. A mountain lion will eat you alive. Doesn't matter. On the other hand, grizzly bear with cubs wants to make sure you're not a threat. You survive it. A mountain lion will gnaw on you until there's nothing left of you. There'll be nothing you can do to prevent a mountain lion from chewing on you. And that's where I think we've gotten. As a society, so many people go, I'm just going to roll over and play dead. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to mix this up. I'll just leave it be and everything will go away. Everything will get better. I can just roll over and play dead. And if I'm not a threat, people will leave me alone. But now you look at some of the rioting. You look at some of the things that are going on in some cities and cities of all different sizes. What happens when the people that want to water down your human wherewithal, that want you to believe that you're worth penny stocks, that want you to believe their way of life? Now it's popular. Some will call it Marxist. Some will call it mob. Some will call it gang activity, whatever you want to call it. But for those people, it's like dealing with a mountain lion. If you don't stand up, anyone listening that has little kids, you can't let, every so often, you've got to pull a little kid aside and go, hey, we don't act that way. We don't do that way. We treat people with compassion and respect, right? We let them know this isn't going to be tolerated. We're not going to roll over and play dead. We're not going to act like we're asleep, like we're no threat. You have to know you can't act like this. Then we get to the position where we're in now, where there's so many people acting like a mountain lion, they're perfectly comfortable rioting. Now, we're not talking about protesting. We're not talking about peaceful assembly. We're not talking about any of that. We're simply talking about people that will shoot other human beings, kick other human beings on the ground. Oh, aren't they tough? Throwing garbage cans and bricks and park benches through store windows, looting, pillaging, burning cars down, burning buildings down, just destroying people's livelihoods. That's because as a people, for years, maybe even over the last 19 years, we've gone, all right, just leave us be. We don't want to get involved. No trouble here. No trouble, no trouble. Now people are coming up to folks in a restaurant, jeering them, telling them, you either believe what we believe or we're going to throw your food. I saw one video, and I think, correct me, Wayne, it was either in Pittsburgh or maybe somewhere in Wisconsin. I think it was Pittsburgh, but where one of the protesters walks up, and there's an elderly couple there minding their own business, right? Playing dead, right? Just keep away. We're not a threat to you. Comes up, takes her beer and starts chugging it right in front of her and then throws it at her. That's because there's an entire mentality that says, if you roll over and play dead, we're going to eat you alive. And that's what you see with a lack of respect for the police. That's what you see with a lack of respect. As I've said before, I joked before, I'm all over this concept of a 6-foot rule, right? I think they should make the 6-foot rule. And in addition to the 6-foot rule, there should be a 3-second. If you break my 6-foot bubble, there's a 3-second rule, just like in basketball. You come into the paint, you got 3 seconds to get out, or there's a lane violation. I'm all over that. So for people that go, oh, well, what about a bubble? I like that idea. Stay 6 feet away from me. Don't drink my beer. Don't tip my food over. For heaven's sakes, don't harass my family while I'm sitting having a dinner. You and I are going to get along just great. But there are those in society, and we're raising more and more with the mountain lion mentality, that are just absolutely thrilled to have you sit there and do nothing because they're going to eat you alive. All right, so there's our question for this evening over at mortalup.com. Are we in danger of a future that is just really not what we want? Are we in danger of a future that just isn't a happy one for our older selves, our kids and our grandkids, because toxic sensitivity is pulling us all down? One, and then if you offend any of these people and they go right to mountain lion, they're going to eat you alive if you don't stand up, if you don't draw your line in the sand. You and I have gotten to the point where, all right, now we got to get up off the couch. Now we got to stop having fun in life. Now we got to stop looking forward to our future. And we're going to have to stand up because we will not be eaten alive like we're being attacked by some mountain lion. All right, so that's our thought. Head on over to mortalup.com. You can vote in the poll. Wayne, what am I forgetting, or what are you thinking about this evening? What's new and exciting with you?
I'm kind of brain dead with all these last-minute changes.
What you had to load a picture. What last-minute changes? You'll be fine. Your
Picture,
technical expertise
audio.
is saying, oh, and you didn't even put your uniform on. Last-minute changes. All right. He's gonna. Oh, he wears it as a cape. There you go. Last-minute changes. All right. So how's it looking over at Mortal Up? Where are we standing vote-wise? Do you know? I know we said we're going to be posting those tomorrow night. So here's the deal, folks. What we'll do is we'll pose the question. We'll put the poll up at mortalup.com. And then tomorrow night, we'll give you the answer of where it stands. Is toxic sensitivity dangerous? Is it destroying our future? And is it waiting for people like us to be able to stand up and go, here's my line in the sand. I'm just not doing this anymore. Wayne, I'm going to check in on Facebook, see how everyone's doing. Ryan says, hello. Be faster, smarter than the guy next to you. Then either stand up or GFO, be able to assess. Absolutely agreed. That's just smart in any form of life, in anything that you do, right? But the key is what we need to do to stand up to people that we think are going to do what they can to literally burst your bubble. Not only your mental bubble, not only what it is you want to do in life, but your physical bubble. You're sitting at a restaurant, you're having dinner with your wife or you're having dinner with your husband, and someone's taunting you with a bullhorn going, do this or do that. It's getting crazy out there. And then not to even mention the fact, I believe it was yesterday, maybe the day before, that two sheriff's deputies in Los Angeles and Compton were shot point blank in the front seat of their car. Nobody has respect for that bubble anymore. Nobody has respect for that sense of boundary. And I think there's a load full of people that are absolutely thrilled to be acting like mountain lions. And again, not to beat the metaphor up, but to be to the point where they're absolutely capable with you folding your hand, absolutely thrilled with you collapsing. And I'm simply here to suggest that if we want any kind of future for our older selves, right, look how much has changed in the last 19 years since the first September 11th, since the terror. Look how much has changed. And I'm simply saying, what kind of change is going to come in the next 2 decades if we let the toxically sensitive run the show? If we let them act like we're confronting a mountain lion, right? Or is it time, will you say, and you can say over at mortalup.com, is it time to go ahead and stand up for yourself and go, no more mashugana, no more craziness, no more mania, no more just a depraved indifference to human life. And we've talked about it before, Wayne, where we say, oh, if you can kick another human being in the head while they're lying on the ground, you got a depraved indifference to human life. But what are we going to do? So people say, oh, well, we need to defund the police. Great. Or they say, it's popular now in some circles, especially given one of the candidates for president who came out right away and say, see, this is why we need gun control. No, what you need is people that will go in and get the bad guys and the bad girls, not just the, right? I don't want to mansplain. The bad guys and the bad girls with the illegal guns, get them, put them in jail. Very simple. Go get them, charge them, and if you convict them, they go straight to jail. Imagine it's not someone with a pistol permit that's busy running around creating all these gun crimes. And I dare say, although we don't have the stats with me for right now, I would say to you that a lot of the crimes in these inner cities or in areas aren't coming from people that legally are allowed to have handguns. They're coming from places, think about it, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. I don't even think you're allowed to carry a gun in. You're not allowed to carry a handgun into those cities. And Wayne, am I wrong? Is there a higher handgun crime total than New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles? Or are they pretty much the top, close to being the top 3?
They are the top.
They are the top. Okay, so there you go. You've got people, not law-abiding citizens. So if you want gun control, go after the bad guys that have the guns. Go after the bad girls that have the guns and are using them feloniously, and leave the people. Oh, we need another. Well, that's why I came up with a war on toxic sensitivity. We need another war on guns. We need gun legislation. How about arresting the bad guys and making sure they're not on the streets running around with the illegal guns? How about, let's say we do that? That might be a good start, I would imagine. All right, let's check and see what's going on in the feed. Over on Facebook, don't forget, Dana Lee, say hello. Dana, how are you? Toxic sensitivity. That's exactly what we're talking about this evening. Thank you so very much for joining us. So that's what we're, as I just said to Dana, that's what we're kicking around. You get to the point where you go, I've had enough. I'm not going to be eaten alive. Someone's got to stand up to the insanity, and that's what we're going to do this evening. That's what we're talking about. That's going to be, to be honest with you, when we talk about Mortal Up with Brian Brawdy, we've got a lot of new things coming. We're going to get here to the bottom of the hour, and then heading into the top of the hour, we're going to open up the lines, try some calls so that people are able to call in. Wayne, why don't we go ahead and at very least post the number that they can call us at? It's 833-MORTAL-1. So you dial in 833-MORTAL and the numeral 1 for those of us challenged like I am.
The phone lines are open. Now's your chance to mortal up and give Brian a shout, because your opinion deserves to be heard. Dial toll-free 1-833-MORTAL-1. That's 833-MORTAL-1.
All right, I don't want to step all over my good friend Bill, but that also translates into 833-667-8251. If you get a chance here, we're just a few minutes away from taking calls. Don't forget, you can also text us at that number. I get text directly in here to the studio, so give us a call or send us a text if you're so inclined. Let us know what you think. Am I wrong about this toxic sensitivity? Because, we might be at 600 likes by now on a little post that we threw up yesterday about a war on toxic sensitivity. But I have to tell you, some of them were saying, oh, right, you're just supposed to be able to run roughshod over everybody. You don't have to take another person's feelings into account. I'm not saying that at all. I take all kinds of people's feelings into account. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm simply saying is we have developed a disease, if you will. You want to talk about a pandemic? There's a pandemic of thin skin. There's a pandemic of being triggerable. There's a pandemic where you can't say anything. You can't do anything. You can't write nothing. Everybody's walking on eggshells. So that's what we talk about when we talk about toxic sensitivity. If you get a chance, head on over to mortalup.com. There's the poll, and we will go ahead and announce the winner tomorrow evening. So that should be a good time. Oh, and of course, tomorrow evening we'll get back. We'll have Lowlifes making headlines. We're working on a good one for that tomorrow. And then also, I think tomorrow we'll do some Mortal Up tonight, obviously, but tomorrow will also be a little bit of woke, spoke, and choke. I've got a good one teed up for that for tomorrow night. So we're looking forward to kind of kicking that around. And I'll tell you, all kinds of people on Twitter and most certainly on Facebook have said, well, I'm unwoke. I most certainly have not woke. If by woke you mean overly sensitive, overly this and that, I am definitely not in that crowd. So thank you so much for, and oh, don't forget, I want to mention Twitter. If you get a chance to head on over to Twitter, we're following that feed as well, along with the feed here at facebook.com. And we're doing the radio for all the people over at mortalup.com. If you're listening now, thank you so very much for joining us, because you know the radio show goes out live there. It also goes out on ipmnation.com/Brian. So if you get a chance, you're listening to any of those different areas, you can still use the 833-MORTAL-1, 833-667-8251. Send us a text. We'll be taking calls coming up right at the bottom of the hour. All right, so as we get ready to wrap this up, what we've been focused on in our opening half hour is just that. What kind of future are we going to have if everyone is offended by everything? How many books are you going to burn? How many stand-up comedians are you going to railroad? How many different people are you going to gaslight because you don't agree with their opinion? And I've gotten in trouble before because people have said to me, oh, well, you know what? It's the First Amendment right is only to protect the government. The First Amendment right was a great idea for all of humanity. You ought to be able to have the right to say what you think, which is why I've never censored anything at all. I've never censored. Well, one time on Facebook, I censored someone because they talked about, well, to be honest, between you and me, I blocked or I erased, I deleted someone's comment because they were talking about plans to assassinate a president. And I'm like, look, I'm booked this week. I got a lot going on. I don't have time for a Black Hawk to land in my front yard and Secret Service agents to jump out and go, were you involved in this plan to assassinate a sitting president? So I was like, whoop, delete. Oh, quick, get that out of here. But other than that, that's why people on Facebook have been able, people on Twitter, people on LinkedIn, people on Facebook, on YouTube, people have been able to say whatever they want, because I think it's important that you say how you feel. It's equally as important never to attempt to squelch what another person wants to say. You get the right to say how you feel. Another person gets to say how he or she feels, and that's the way it should be. All right, Wayne, let's go ahead, run to the bottom of the hour. We will be right back. We're taking calls on the other side, 833-MORTAL-1. We will be back literally in about, I don't know, a little over 60 seconds. right, welcome back. Thank you for sticking with us. All right, so Wayne, we've been talking about this, you all. Let's look, just between us. We've been talking about this for so long, and we've spent a good bit of time, a good bit of cash, a good bit of mental wherewithal to be able to figure out how to do this. So Wayne, let's go ahead and queue up the phone number once again, and then let's see if we can't take our first caller for the new, I don't want to say improved, but the new and revised Mortal Up with Brian Brawdy.
The phone lines are open. Now's your chance to mortal up and give Brian a shout because your opinion deserves to be heard. Dial toll-free 1-833-MORTAL-1. That's 833-MORTAL-1.
And just to go ahead, my good friend Bill would probably also say 833-667-8251, 833-667-8251. Don't forget, you can also text us at that number. And this, it's a toll-free number, so you got that going for you. And I think if you text a toll-free number, you're good there as well. Maybe I should be saying this is a part of the show where you say, oh, well, standard text rates apply. That could be the case. I don't know, really. Let me know if you get dinged for a text. And I wanted to bring the koozies down. I'll do that tomorrow night. But I also have some koozies we have with the Mortal Up logo and the Brian Brawdy Show on the other side. And although they were a little late in arriving, not a lot of people running around with a cold drink that they want to keep it nice and cool now that summer's coming to an end in some parts of the country. But we'll go ahead and get one of those out to you as well if that's something you would like to have. So 833-MORTAL-1. That's 833-667-8251. Thank you for everyone that's listening on IPMNation.com and all the people listening over at Mortal Up. We have our own audio player. So someone had texted me earlier today and said, hey, what do we got to do to get the app? Well, the nice thing about this is all you do is go to mortalup.com. You put it right in your, scroll bar, title bar, whatever that's called across the top there. You put that in, and then it just pops up and the player is right there. You scroll down a little bit, you get to vote, all the Mortal Up minutes, everything else is right there. So when we talk about wanting to get your opinion, when we talk about wanting to hear what you think, what you have to say, that's most certainly the case. So we're going to do the phone lines, we're going to do the text lines, and you don't need an app. Just go to mortalup.com and you can catch the audio live as it's happening. So maybe you don't want to be on Facebook. Now, there could be a reason for that. I'll tell you a little bit of a reason. When we posted the ad today, which was just saying, oh, we're going to be talking about the war on toxic sensitivity, Mug Pamphlet, wink, wink, nod, nod. Mug Pamphlet said, oh, no, your ad is too controversial to post, too controversial to boost, too controversial. So you might as well just roll over and play dead. But then Wayne was like, I don't know about that. Wayne challenged it, and there you go. All of a sudden, we're not going to treat you like a mountain lion. We're not going to have you eat us alive. We're going to stand up to you, right? And that's going to make sure that the attack doesn't happen. And sure enough, the Mug Pamphlet relented, and the ad went up. Candace, phone. Yes, ma'am. The phone is 833-667-8251. You're welcome to call in. Let me say hello to Hector. And hello, thank you so much for watching. Dana, if you're with us, thank you again. You're absolutely right about toxic sensitivity. Brian, nice to see you. Brian Bouchard, nice to see you as well. Candace and Miss Putnam, thank you so very much for hanging out with us here on the Brian Brawdy Show. So if you head on over, then you'll be able to not only get the audio live, as you can also at IPMNation.com/Brian, be able to get that and be able to keep abreast of what we're doing. All right, so what we're talking about this evening is toxic sensitivity and what happens when we raise an entire generation of people that want to take their ball and go home. They have no respect for other people. Their opinion is the only opinion that counts. I was talking, and this is going to get me in all kinds of trouble. I can just imagine this now. I was talking to someone the other day who said, well, you're guilty until proven innocent. And I said, well, you mean innocent until proven guilty, right? No. We mean you're guilty because why would someone make it up? Why would someone make it up? So let me just throw out this question, right? And this is what will get me in trouble with everyone. But let me just throw this out. Is it true? And maybe Wayne, You can go ahead and do a little bit of research for me while I get ready to say this. But the current understanding is, at least as I believe it, at least as I remember it, is that the human brain isn't fully formed until it's 25 years old. So all kinds of opportunity for misfires and general craziness and all this and everything else. But that your brain fully forms when you're 25. All right, let's just say for a moment that's the case. Which begs the question, unless you're unless you're in the military, unless you're a public servant, and I don't mean career politicians. I mean a public servant like a fireman, a paramedic, a police officer. I'm getting to the point now where I'm saying, wait a minute, just hear me out on this. If your brain isn't fully formed until you're 25, what the hell are they doing thinking about letting 17-year-olds vote in California? Why do they even allow 18-year-old vote, for that matter? 19, 20-year-old. At 20, you're 5 years away before your brain has finally worked itself out. Everyone's talking about, well, the youth are our future. We need to get the youth vote involved. Yeah, I don't know. I got to tell you, I think maybe not so quickly.
You've got a call.
You got a call. All right. I'm sorry. Let's take the call. Hi, who's this?
This is Candy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Candy. How are you? Nice to hear your voice.
I'm doing great, and you look great, and I just thought I'd call and say hello, and I'm not a chicken. You know me.
I know you. Well, Candace, I was thinking about you the other day. Someone reminded me that it was a year ago, coming up on a year ago, that we did the 24-hour marathon. Do you remember that?
Really?
Yeah. It was a full year ago, the anniversary of that. So obviously it made me think of you and Snoopy, right? Hang on.
Yeah.
Snoopy and everything else. So I hope all is well. So Candace,
we had a lot of fun that night. That was fun.
Didn't we? So let me ask you, where do you fall on this whole thing? Am I overplaying my hand here? Is toxic sensitivity as dangerous as I think it is for the future? What say you?
Yes. Yes, it is. I gotta turn my cell phone down because you're like behind me. Wait a minute. Are you there?
I am. So you're saying you think it is as serious a thing as we suggest it is?
Yes.
And have you found examples in your life currently where you're running into something? Like I talked before about Howie Mandel and the whole battle that he had with the actress who said she was just mortified because he told a joke about bumping into her in the hallway and she just kept on going. Can you give me an example in your life where you've run up against toxic sensitivity and it's just not worked out the way you wanted it to, let's say?
The whole thing's been really weird. People that are friends basically their whole life are hating each other.
Right.
I don't know. It's just, I honestly can't figure it out. All the stuff that's going on and things that people are saying is just, to me, absolutely not the truth.
Sure. So then there's the whole thing about propaganda that you're thinking about, that in addition to the toxic sensitivity, the sense of propaganda.
And it causes it to flare because I get mad. I'm not going to say that I don't,
Right.
A lot of things infuriate me, but I didn't really honestly know until all this stuff started. I didn't really know that I never even thought about like hating people for, you know what I mean? I didn't even think about stuff like that. And then they are cramming it down our throats like we're this way, and we're not. I'm not.
Not at all. I would agree.
I'm absolutely not. And I think people are getting angry because they're like, I'm not this way. They're saying that we're this way, and we're not. And so it's causing huge clashes of opinions, you know.
I absolutely believe you. Well, especially on social media, the number of people that I've been friends with or acquaintances with, or the number of people that I've interacted with over the years, that now that, well, you offended me, I'm outraged, I'm triggered by what you said, and they don't even want to speak anymore. Like your opinion somehow gets in and totally rearranges their sense of self. It's like they've surrendered a remote control where they can just go and, right? And you have the remote control, and now you go, oh, well, let me bring out rage. It's like everyone has this sense of road rage. I call it keyboard courage to go along with it, Candace. But it just seems that everyone wants to be offended. Everyone, right? They're running around with such thin skin. They're looking for reasons to be triggered. What say you?
I say that I believe what I believe, and you pretty much know how that is.
Sure.
And if if one of my friends or somebody else wants to be on, call me whatever, or be on the other side or whatever, that's their choice. But I've been attacked many times by it. You know me, I just shake it off. I don't really care.
Sure. So you would say then that it's
life worrying about what somebody thinks about me.
So somebody thinks about me, right? Well, then you definitely don't suffer from that sense of toxic sensitivity. Well, Candace, thank you so very much for the call. We super appreciate it. It's great to hear your voices.
Well, you look great.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Please tell Jamie I said howdy, and call back again whenever you get a chance.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much, Candace. Let me say good evening to Henry. Thank you so very much for hanging out with us this evening. We're glad to have you along. So we were just talking to Candace about it, and she raises a valid point. Are there friendships that you've lost because people are too thin-skinned? Maybe you're the one that's too thin-skinned, or it's absolutely the other person that's been too thin-skinned. So you've lost relationships or lifelong relationships simply because of toxic sensitivity. Everyone's talking about the pandemic now. Oh, you could catch it this way or catch it that way. How did we catch toxic sensitivity? How have we gotten to the point where people are just so thin-skinned that you have to walk on eggshells? You never know who's going to be offended. And that's why we called both for tonight's show and the theme. Thank you to Wayne for the thumbnail and the theme, and also that we put up over on Facebook and on the poll at mortalup.com. Do you think toxic sensitivity is dangerous for our future? What happened to the day we put up as I said, in the thumbnail, right? Where we were all machines. We knew what had to happen. We knew that we had to square our shoulders. Did you ever wonder what humanity would be like? And I say this all the time now. If you think of the number of people that scream, it's all about science. It's all about science. It's all about science. Science smash. Went on a bicycle ride and a big sign in someone's yard. Well, we believe in science. Okay, great. So if I can ask all the people running around with their little science flags, if I can ask a question of all the people running around with their science flags, and let's talk about biology. Let's talk about evolution. Let's talk about the science of psychology. Can you imagine if encoded with nature? Now, by nature, Big Bang, right? Gravity, or the big breath, God. Whether we walked out of the savannas of Africa or we walked out of the Garden of Eden, you decide. Whatever your life understanding is to how human beings evolve. Can you believe if we evolved with this concept of safe spaces? Now, there's all kinds of people say, well, Bri, we've just gotten better as a community, so safe spaces just make sense. No, they don't. No, they don't. I'll tell you a quick little story. Years ago in Tampa, Florida, I had decided that I was going to buy an orchid, right? And I knew nothing about orchids. I knew that I would just watch them all die. So I remember going to a Home Depot in Tampa, Florida, talking to a nice elderly lady who had come out and in a very McGruff, crime dog kind of voice said, you know what, sweetie? She goes, when it comes to dealing with orchids, I've got some advice for you. And I said, yes, ma'am. I'd love to know what you know as the gardener, the head gardener here at Home Depot. She goes, and I've never forgotten this. Neglect is best. And I go, neglect is best. And she goes, yeah. Now, this was her, not me. She goes, yeah, treat your orchids just like you treat your women. Neglect is best. And she chuckled and kind of walked off. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe it works for orchids. So I'm willing to give it a try. But here's the thing about safe spaces. Just like the orchid, it never had a chance to take root. It never had a chance to bear up against the weather, against the wind, against adversity. If it was always stuck at a port in the storm, did it ever learn how to truly navigate the waters? No, of course it didn't. And in some ways, neglect is best for that reason. Candace, let me say good versus evil, period. I would agree. And as Henry says, hi, Brian Bouchard. I agree with that as well. Jared, thank you so very much for joining us here on Mortal Up with Brian Brawdy, a.k.a. The Brian Brawdy Show. We're talking about toxic sensitivity, and we're talking about what happens, right? Everyone wants to be a fan of science. Science, 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 science. Great. You can stop saying science long enough. How about the science of evolution? How about the science of biology or psychology? Would you have formed a human mind full of grit, full of the ability to tap their natural resources, full of the ability to square their shoulders, come what may, and survive, whether it was Eden or Africa, right? Flaming Sword or the savannah, whatever, you decide. Wherever humanity walked out of, whether they were evicted or it was just the call of nature moving them on, would we have progressed to the degree that we have if everything were triggerable? If we got to the point where everything was a safe space, we all lived in a bubbles, we all had our service animal. Mine is a moose. We all had our service animals. We all had those things that would prevent us from rising to the challenge at hand. What would have happened to humanity? Probably would have been taken over by the Neanderthals. We definitely wouldn't have the chain of DNA that we have, the tree of life, if everyone said, oh, I can't go out there. The weather offends me. I can't go into that dark cave, or I can't climb up over those mountains, or I can't navigate that river. I couldn't do any of that. I'm only a lowly, watered down, pathetic little human being. I couldn't. Oh, no, please. No, time out, cross, whatever. Hard stop, drop the mic. Oh, that hurt my foot. I dropped the mic on my foot. Drop the mic. I couldn't do that. Where would you and I be if our ancestors had decided to fold their hands at every turn? Oh, I don't know. I need a safe space. I need a bubble. I'm triggered by that. Where would we be? So what if science is right? I tend to believe that it is. Science says just deal with it. Deal with the adversity at hand, because it's going to make you stronger. We've talked about this before. And I think whether it's the mountain lion or the grizzly bear, it's the same thing as if you break your leg skiing. Your sense of grit, your sense of resolve, your sense of determination, your sense of badassery, it atrophies when you don't use it. Just like if you break your leg skiing, or you fall off a bicycle and break your arm and they put it into a cast, 6, 8, 10, whatever, 12 weeks later, they let you out of the cast and they go, what happened to your leg? Where's your arm? Did you leave it at the top dresser drawer before you came in here? No, it atrophied. It atrophied. It wasted away to nothing. Why? Because a muscle needs an antagonist. Why is it you think these astronauts go to space? Since everyone wants to talk about science, let's talk about some real science. Astronauts go to space. Why do they have to put them on treadmills, on bicycles? Why this or that? Because with no gravity, with no antagonist, the muscles in their body atrophy. So where everyone says, I need a safe space, I need to be able to go to school, to a campus, I need to be able to make sure that I don't hear anything that could offend me, right? It's not so much toxic sensitivity in anything other than it's an auditory disease, right? It affects my ears. I can't have any of these things. I need a bubble. I need some protection. Where would the human race be? Maybe more importantly, for the contents of the show, where's the human race going to be 20 years from now? If everyone's busy going, oh, I don't know. That's too much. I can't even entertain that thought of yours. I'm so offended. I'm so outraged. I'm so mortified. The word mortified. I have an idea. Look up the damn word mortified. You're not mortified by the word. Trust me, you're not. I don't care what says, you're not mortified by it. So what's the future going to look like? Just not for some of us listening, for our future, our retirement. What's it going to look like for our kids and our grandkids? If our sense of self has slid to such a degree in 20 years, what's it going to be like in 20 more? Oh, we have to be careful. I think, look, if you're like, oh, well, it's politically correct to stand against hate speech. Nobody likes hate speech. I don't like hate speech. But I think it's hate hearing. I think people grow up learning how to hate everything they hear. If it doesn't dovetail with their sense of life, their sense of the world, if it doesn't dovetail with that, they don't want to hear it. They got better places to be. They're going to go riot and protest and do all the rest of it. Instead of mixing it up and trying to make a difference, trying to square their shoulders and actually change the outcome. Oh, no, I'm out of here. I can't handle this. I don't have to listen to that. You're right. You don't have to listen to it. You'd be stronger if you did. Right? You get to be a better tennis player by playing, wait for it, someone better at tennis, someone that challenges you, someone that causes you to push the envelope, someone that sticks you in the gut with the tip of the spear, someone that makes you. I'm sorry, Wayne. Right on. Thank you so much. Right on as well. That's what makes you better. Adversity makes you better. That's what keeps your muscles from atrophying, is that you actually use them. And from working out, Wayne, son Derek Noel Fitness, he most certainly could talk more about this than I could, but progressive adaptation, where you put a little bit of muscle under some strain, and each day after a little bit of rest, that muscle comes back stronger. Well, what kind of mental muscle do you have if you're so sensitive you can't entertain any other thoughts? You don't have a mind. You might have a brain, but it's most certainly not a mind. It's like a giant slate for propaganda where you get to say, oh, no. I couldn't enter into a debate. I'm not going to debate you. I'd rather just interrupt your meal. I'd rather just scream at you through a bullhorn. I'd rather just riot and protest and carry a... I can't hear stuff like that. Are you kidding me? Ginger, I want to say hello quickly. Thank you so very much for joining us. Nancy is watching with us. Thank you so very much. We're talking about toxic sensitivity and what happens to a human mind that atrophies because it's never had to put up with the vagaries of life. Never, as Shakespeare would say, to suffer the slings and arrows. Never had to suffer of that. Everything's got to be given to them. Everything's got to be smooth. Everything's got to be easy. Oh, I couldn't possibly go to a college campus where I hear things that are offensive to me. What kind of mind do you get? What kind of mind is left over from that? And look, you do what you want to do. For the rest of us, what kind of society is left over? What are we up against where toxic sensitivity and political correctness has worked its way into every facet of our lives? What kind of history are we going to ignore? What kind of future are we ignoring now? What kind of future are we going to have if toxic sensitivity runs the show? We're going to have one like we do today. Riots in the streets, people killing each other left and right, all of the fighting, nobody trying to debate, no dialogue, right? Just put up screen doors. Just put up blocks, barn doors to the hearing. I can't even begin to listen to something like that. So maybe I've kind of hedged the bet a little bit as to how things are going to turn out over at mortalup.com with the poll. Maybe toxic sensitivity is as dangerous as everyone thinks it is. It doesn't take away from the fact that this is one of the coolest times in the history of the world to be alive. Most certainly some of the most interesting times in all of human history to be alive. Leading up to the election and the aftermath of the election. But more importantly, when we talk about Mortal Up, and you can vote at mortalup.com, when we talk about Mortal Up, how do you stand against toxic sensitivity? I have to tell you, it's just like doing push-ups or sit-ups or bicycle intervals, swimming intervals, running intervals, little bit at a time. So I know it's not popular to suggest, oh, you have to listen to another opinion, right? We talk about the New York crimes. We talk about the Washington Compost. We talk about MSNBC. We talk about the Circus News Network and little Jimmy Accosted. But the reasons that we listen, the reasons that we pay attention to these stories is that that's how we build mental fortitude. That's how we're able to create an atmosphere where atrophy doesn't take hold. Because if we don't do that, we're going to get the future that we're busy now sitting by going, nah, let's let the mountain lions run the show. It won't be as bad. The mauling won't be as bad as everyone thinks. I'm here to tell you it will be that bad. You look back in the history of Marxist thought, right? You look back in the history of political correctness. You look back on the history of where toxic sensitivity runs amok to such a degree you can't even say what you think without the police state coming down around you. What kind of life you're going to have then? All you got to do is look back in the history books. Ask Stalin. Ask Mao Zedong. Ask North Korea. Ask any of the dictatorships that we've had. How did that work out for humans? Killed more than any virus will ever kill. Oh, well, Brad, not about the great influenza, the Spanish flu. No. Communism, Marxism, this whole sense of not listening to another person's opinion, where the state gives you everything to believe in. That's killed more people than absolutely any other disease, maybe even all the diseases combined. All right, let me say hello quickly to Russell. Russell, thank you for joining us. We super appreciate it. Candace, sad times. But I have to tell you, in addition to the sad times, some great times, because I think that now is the time to square our shoulders, to show people what we're made of, and to mortal up, to not cower waiting for the mountain lion to eat us. In those situations we go, yeah, let's play dead. It's only a mama grizzly bear. Great. But in every other situation, no way. We're not going to stand for the watering down of human wherewithal. We're not going to be told. Here's another thing that a couple of people had mentioned to me today in text, that they're just plain tired. Maybe you're like this as well. We'll pick this up tomorrow night. We're getting ready to jump out of here. Maybe you're tired of it as well. You're tired of constantly having to defend what you're not. You're not a racist. You're not a bully, right? You don't have a depraved indifference to human life, but you just get browbeaten. You just get thrown under the bus day in and day out, and you get tired. That's the situation we have coming if we don't mortal up and we don't stand up for the things you and I know to be right. And never let them get you down. And the quickest way for them to get us down is for you to forget who you ultimately are. Because when we talk about mortal up, it's always with the sense of tapping your natural resources, tapping your authentic vigor, tapping your grit, squaring your shoulders, come what may, and say, I absolutely refuse to be brought down by this situation, whatever it is, wherever you find yourself, say, I absolutely refuse to be brought down by this. And that is the clinical definition of mortal up. All right, Wayne, if you're still with me, anything else that I forgot to mention, or are we about ready to get out of here?
I think you got it.
Henry says it's an exciting time. We now have the chance to discover what we are made of. Henry, I could not agree with you more. I would tweak it one little bit. We get to rediscover, right, Henry? Because if you and I have always talked, and then Wayne will go to the close, it's not about motivation. It's about memory, right? It's about remembering. You don't need inspired. You just need an outlook that remembers what you ultimately are capable of when you mortal up. All right, thank you all so very much. Don't forget, head over to mortalup.com. You can cast your vote if you haven't already. We'll see you back here tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Thank you all so very much.
Thanks for listening to the Brian Brawdy Show. Until next time, get out there and mortal up.